consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of Saint Joseph. Today, on The Simple Truth, our guest is Larry Cirignano. He'll correct me on that pronunciation. We didn't have time to go over it right before the show, but he'll let us know. He's a longtime pro-life activist. He's been part of leading many organizations and initiatives, including Catholic Citizenship, Catholic Families for America, and Young Catholic Leaders. He's participated in peaceful pro-life demonstrations and has faced legal battles related to his activism. He's also played a key role in various public policy efforts focusing on promoting pro-life and pro-family positions. And he's also been with us from the beginning on the Men's March from that very first event back in Washington, D.C., June 2021. And he's been with us, part of the Brotherhood, going strong ever since. TheMen'sMarch.com, TheMen'sMarch.com. Next event coming up in Boston, November 16th. Really looking forward to hearing Larry share some of his personal testimony with us today, especially related to the good work that he's been doing in the pro-life world for a very long time, and get some of his experience on that, to hear some of that experience, to learn from that, and various initiatives that he's been part of. So he's got a very unique perspective that is going to be helpful to all of us, I think, to hear and just learn how the Lord has been guiding him in this and what he's learned along the way. So we'll wait to get Larry back in a moment. In the meantime, I can certainly encourage you to come and join us on that next Men's March, the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion Rally for Personhood, a very important opportunity coming up in Boston, Massachusetts. If you're in the Boston area, look, this is a no-brainer. Men, we need you out there. We got to stand for innocent children that are being murdered every day, innocent women, pregnant moms in need, that are being exploited in this culture that we're in. We got to stand up. We got to say no more. The Men's March is an opportunity to do that. Again, Saturday, November 16th. We're going to start in front of that Planned Parenthood Killing Center out there on Commonwealth. We're going to pray. We're going to march. We're going to be at the rally. Hear some great speakers there. TheMen'sMarch.com has all the information. TheMen'sMarch.com, also a wonderful opportunity for fathers to bring their sons. Make it a generational thing. Grandfathers, fathers, sons, everybody come on out and teach these young guys, just by way of example, that we've got to stand up for the least of these. This is very, very important. And also, ladies, women, there's a role for you in this as well. Certainly, we need to stand up together. And so the rally is a great place to hear these great speakers. Everybody's always been welcome to join us all together at the rally. Now we're even opening up the march for women who want to be a part of that. Feel free. Come and join us. You can join us for prayer in front of the Abortion Killing Center. Come on the march with us if you like. And there's also another opportunity, though, if you'd prefer to pray in intercession for this event, for the good fruits that the Lord would want to bring forth from this. There's an opportunity for that as well at a nearby parish. And so all the information's at themensmarch.com. So the prayers, very important. Everybody can pray for this, for the good work being done here, and that good fruits would come. And that also that you can help spread the word. So anything you can do to help spread the word, all the information at themensmarch.com, including a nice blurb, a flyer. We even have a Spanish flyer. So get it in your parish bulletin, get it out there. Whatever you can do to spread the word, send it out, social media, email lists, whatever you got, let people know about it. And then if you can show up, obviously that's a blessing. Boston area has got to show up big. And anybody in the surrounding areas, come on, make the trip. And anybody far and wide, I know we have people that come from all over the country to our events. And so that's an opportunity for everybody. It is a national event, the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion Rally for Personhood. And that's what we want to do. We want to abolish it. We want to end it. We want to stand up for every preborn child. We were all that size once from those earliest levels of development. And if somebody would have taken us out at those early levels of development, we wouldn't be here. So for us who have made it out, right, for us who are alive and now have the power to stand up for the least of these, for those that don't have a voice yet, those that are developing, that are just as human as you and I think it is a moral duty for us to stand up for them, just as we would want someone to stand up for us. So this is a great opportunity before us to say this has to end. Let's abolish this ongoing daily mass murder, and let's rally for personhood, that idea that every human being is a human person, right? Scientific fact, life begins at conception, fertilization, and it's a foundational moral truth that we ought not be killing each other. We ought not be murdering innocent children. And so let's rally for the unborn child being recognized, being affirmed as a person. In the Constitution, under the 14th Amendment, it says all persons have equal protection under the laws. And so our argument is, as well as many legal scholars, we didn't make this up. There are many, Dr. Robert George, John Finnis, Josh Craddock, Hadley Arcus, many others who have put forth this argument, this legal argument, this scholarship on this legal argument that is rock solid in my view of it. And we've gone through this in subsequent many shows that we've had since we've been doing these marches and rallies. And so we've unpacked this thing and really gotten deep into it. We've done shows on it. So the Friday show in particular is a great place to go to learn more about that. Rallyforpersonhood.com is also a great place to go. Father Imbarato's initiative of education is there, Rally for Personhood. And so yeah, we want to keep educating people about that fact, that equal protection under the law, under the 14th Amendment, and keep moving forward with the Men's March, themensmarch.com. I think we've got Larry with us now. So let's go to Larry. Larry, how are you today? I think we've got a good connection with you. And first and foremost, we want to make sure we've got that pronunciation correct on your last name.
Anything but late for supper, Jim. I'm the oldest of 8, and all of us say it different, whether you're in Boston or St. Louis or Virginia. Each of them say it something different. But the Italian would be Cirignano, wow. And Cirignano, or Father Imbarato will say Sergiano. You know, the G should be the G in lasagna. So Cirignano.
Wow. Cirignano. That's great. I like that. I like the Italian, even the rolling of the R you got there. That's good stuff. I'm not so good at that. So, I'll do my best with it as we go. But it is a blessing to have you on with us today, Larry. And we always like to begin at the beginning. What was your early life like, childhood, your family, the culture that you grew up in?
I grew up in New Jersey. My dad was an accountant. My mom was a nurse who stayed home to take care of 8 kids. I was the oldest. They had me, said, we could do better. And they were right. They kept going and got to number 8. I went to Catholic school, Catholic high school, Seton Hall, which at the time in the 70s was semi-Catholic, trying to become secular, Catholic law school. And then I got involved in doing campaigns and election work and traveled with Ronald Reagan, worked with Mrs. Reagan on the Just Say No campaign, the drug-free workplace, worked with Bill Bennett while he was drug czar and set that office up. And then I've worked in 14 states running either a Senate or governor's race. I've lost elections all over the world, but I've won a few.
And so tell us, as that early part of life developed, I mean, you got into the political world, the upper echelon in the political world sounds like pretty quickly there. Was pro-life always, I guess, preeminent in your heart and mind from your early days growing up? Share with us a little bit about your formation there.
No, I was always pro-life, obviously Catholic parents, and didn't even think about abortion until probably 7th or 8th grade when we started to hear about it in the early 60s. And then I was, I guess, junior in high school in 73 when the Roe v. Wade decision came down. And it wasn't really on my conscience at all. But because I was the Catholic kid in campaigns, I was always sent to do whatever the Catholic outreach was. And so whether it was school choice or embryo research or adoption, certainly all the abortion issues. And over the course of the time, I got to know all the players. I met Father Frank Pavone back in 1996 in West Virginia on a governor's race. Got to meet a lot of his staff and the other priests that were involved around the country. Was with Mrs. Nellie Gray, who was the head of the March for Life. I spent a lot of time with Nellie and a lot of the other leaders at the time. Mildred Jefferson up in Massachusetts, who was the first Black woman to graduate from Harvard Medical School and was the first head of the National Right to Life Committee. My claim to fame is I used to be a driver for all of them at different points and different meetings that we would hold around Washington and around the country. Always going off with Phyllis Schlafly and Judy Brown, and being indoctrinated, if you will, into the no exceptions mindset, contrary to what a lot of the public people were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to be back with Larry Cirignano in just a moment. And this is an incredible opportunity to learn from Larry, learn from his life experiences. So we're going to ask him about that as we go. In the meantime, we do invite you to go check out themensmarch.com. And if you're just joining the show, you can always go back via podcast. You can always go back wherever you can find the show on social media. The Jim Havens YouTube channel is a good place for that. And you know, we want to invite you to share it. There is stuff that we are putting out in this show that people really aren't going to get anywhere else. You know, and so this is something that does need to be shared. I don't try to encourage that enough, but if you would share the show, if you find it valuable, we do appreciate that. We're going to be right back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Introducing iCatholic Mobile, the mobile phone service that keeps you connected while supporting your faith. Every time you make a call, send a text, or browse the web, you're helping the station of the Cross Catholic Media Network continue its mission. A portion of every iCatholic mobile plan goes directly to supporting Catholic programming that spreads the truth, defends the unborn, and strengthens souls. Join the network that aligns with your values. More info at iCatholicMobile.com.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today on this Testimony Tuesday. We've got Larry Cirignano with us. How's that for the Italian pronunciation? That's my best swing at it. But we're going to get Larry back in here in just a moment. But first, I do want to let you know about Catholic, the only Catholic mobile phone company in the U.S. today. It's iCatholic Mobile. Maybe you've heard about it. We've been talking about it for a little bit now on this show. And the great thing about it is that if you already have cell phone service, you can switch over pretty easily over to iCatholic Mobile, and then you'll be getting your cell service from a Catholic source that you can feel good about. And also, iCatholic Mobile gives a portion of every dollar earned to the station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. So when you subscribe to iCatholic Mobile, you would be helping to fund all the programs on the Station of the Cross, including The Simple Truth. We do greatly appreciate you switching to iCatholic Mobile. You can join today by going to iCatholicMobile.com. That's iCatholicMobile.com. Also, if you're looking for a new phone or new cell service that you're looking for an entirely new thing, you can still go over and check out iCatholic Mobile, even if you're not a switch over. iCatholicMobile.com. Go there, check out the information. They can be your one-stop shop for all sorts of stuff for your cell service and cell phone. I know they just actually, I just had a phone sent to me that I haven't opened it up yet, but new phone, new service with iCatholic Mobile. I'm very excited to try out the whole thing myself and to do it with more of a limited phone where it doesn't have all the online apps and all that stuff. I'm just going to try to really slim it down just to basically using a phone and text service and see how that goes, because I don't want to be constantly distracted and taken off task by my phone. I want the phone to serve me, not to be serving the phone. So again, you got all kinds of options over there at iCatholicMobile.com, iCatholicMobile.com. All right, Larry is back with us. So Larry, you laid out a good chunk of, I guess, your early life, but it sounds like that could be somebody's entire life, all the stuff that you were kind of mentioning there. So I don't know what that sort of leads us up to in terms of time frame, how old you would have been by the time, you were working on all that stuff. The names that you mentioned were quite a while ago. We're talking probably 1980s for many of them. So I don't know, anything that you want to share though from that, because you were in the center of a lot of things or popping up in a lot of areas. Almost as I think about it during the break, it's almost like you're kind of like the Forrest Gump of the pro-life movement. You're popping up all over the place. So anything you want to share, any interesting stories you'd like to share with us, feel free.
Sure. I think, Jim, I've been blessed. In my 20s, coming out of law school, I was able to work for nothing, next to nothing, and volunteer to get involved in campaigns. And I was able to privileged to be with a lot of very interesting people and learn from them. And there's always a need for something along those lines. And, campaigns are huge startups. They start usually in February or March, and they end in November, and they could spend millions of dollars. And so it's an interesting exercise. I'd move into a state, register to vote, get a new driver's license, and meet everybody in the media circles and the political circles, and work to win or lose a campaign, usually in conjunction with the national committees, RNC, congressional committees, Senate committees, governor's committees, and all the other candidates who are running in the state. And over the course of time, I'd learn what worked and what didn't. I'd hear anecdotes, and I'd hear debate prep. Roger Ailes and Roger Stone used to bring me in to do debate prep on the pro-life issue with candidates, where we do hot seat and spend a day throwing all the hard questions back and forth. And so it was a very interesting time, and I became known as somebody who knew a lot about the issues. And there weren't very many people, certainly not men, that wanted to get involved in the issue. So I did, and I still do. I still travel around the country to various meetings like you and I were at Notre Dame last weekend to talk to people, and as we focus in on what's working and what's not.
Yeah, what is it, would you say, that is at the core of that for you? What drives you? What has taken hold for so long, where you continue to plug away, you continue to persevere in the pro-life movement towards the end of abortion, really working to push towards the end? What is it when you try to identify what makes you different than so many others who don't really maybe get involved or engage? Why have you, and why has it it's gone the test of time here throughout your life? What would you say?
I start every morning with Knee-mail, Knee mail, instead of email. And when I grab my phone, I look at the morning readings and that type of thing before I look at TikTok. I don't look at TikTok. I look at Twitter and Facebook, but certainly my Gmail. But I think prayer-centered, and, what is it that God would want me to do today, and then move forward from there. I think I've spent a lot of time on the sidewalk. I've met a lot of moms at that last desperate minute as they're getting ready to walk into an abortion mill, and had turnarounds. And I've got pictures of babies that have been born because we've met them, met their moms, and then have worked with them. I'm haunted, I guess, every time I'm not on the sidewalk that somebody's getting past and going in those doors because somebody's not there to say don't. And so I've been involved with 40 Days for Life and a lot of the other activists around the country that do that type of work, and support for crisis pregnancy centers. And at my parish, we do the baby bottles for fundraising. We do movie nights, and we bring lectures in. We still have, luckily being in the Washington area, we get lots of national speakers coming through. So I stay current on that. And as a result, people call me all the time and ask me for advice or for connections. And I think that's probably one of my talents that, many times we don't realize what our own talents are, but my ability to network, because I do know so many folks and have lived in so many different places and have what we would call a large Rolodex for the old timers. Now it's obviously just a contact list, but back in the day, I had a number of reels with business cards and new folks. And the other thing is that I think because of campaign work, we understand that the urgency, right? That there's a deadline, November, first Tuesday in November. And I think an awful lot of people we were with over the weekend or last week are in the academic pursuit and the legal pursuit, but they haven't been on the sidewalk, and they don't understand the urgency of the immediacy of abortions that are happening today. When we think about the number of abortions that happen every day, and that this isn't something that should be long-term, it's something that could be stopped tomorrow, and should be.
Yeah, Larry Cirignano is with us here, and powerful stuff. And you're bringing me back into some of my own experiences, and powerful. And so, share with us, I guess, was there a moment, was there a time, is there a story that led you from the political action to the hands-on action on the sidewalk. What got you started in that?
I always did. Every time I went to a campaign, the way I met Father Pavone is I knew where the activist would be the homeschoolers and the pro-lifers. And, again, because of my Catholic connections and church connections, trying to go to daily mass, which has been much easier now that masstimes.com is out and available. You can find mass almost anywhere, anytime. But even back in the day when you were asking people and trying to find churches, those were the type of people that you would meet. And the other nature of the business is that every November I'm unemployed and didn't know where I was going next until February or March the following year. Although I did a lot of recounts, and there's always a special election going on in December in Louisiana, or a recount going on somewhere around the country. I've been part of the Republican lawyers since they started. When I first got out of law school in 1981, Tom Kean won his governorship of New Jersey in a lawsuit in January. And I've done that in a couple of other states for Ellen Sauerbrey in Maryland, who lost, for Scott Brown, the state senator in Massachusetts, who became a U.S. senator. So I've done a lot of those types of things. And I've always just been the identified Catholic pro-life activist. And that sort of precedes me. It's one of the reasons I get called. And therefore, you go to the local abortion mill and you go to the local pregnancy center and you go to a lot of those pregnancy center dinners, and you hear a lot of the same speakers that are on the circuit, the celebrity pro-lifers, if you will, and the activists. And that's, if you look at my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed, that's the type of stuff that it's in my silo, right? Those are the people, the Father Imperato and myself, and the people who are out there doing the Men's March and the Rosary Coast to Coast, and out on the sidewalk with all the Red Rose Rescue, all the various lawsuits that are going on. I was with all the people who are in jail now, or a lot of the people, not the people in Tennessee, but the people from Virginia and D.C. that were responsible for finding the babies in the box. And I was part of the privilege to be able to be at their funeral service. I was able to go with a lot of the folks with these baby safe havens when babies are found. And I work a lot with the Choose Life license plate people who promote adoption around the country. So I spend time with the Dave Thomas Foundation and National Council for Adoption, and there's lots of those Facebook pages where people are looking to adopt, and wonderful stories about successes. So I don't spend a lot of time worrying about who's winning in sports or what the stock market's doing. That's not where I spend my time. I spend my time really thinking and talking to people about the life issues.
Yeah, very inspiring. Great witness here with Larry Cirignano. And I want to open up the phone lines because Larry has such experience here that, there may be something you'd really like to ask him. I want to give you that opportunity today. You can call in right now, 1-877-511-5483, a guy who's been around pretty much everything in the pro-life movement, as he's been sharing here, been around so many people and so many events, so many organizations and initiatives. 1-877-511-5483. Give a call in, any question that you'd like to ask to Larry today. 1-877-511-5483. When we come back, we will get into more, maybe some of your questions, but I've got plenty of questions I can ask. We'll be right back. More with Larry. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here. Testimony Tuesday. We've got Larry Cirignano with us. He's going to be back with us in a moment. In the meantime, a quick update on what's been going on here at The Simple Truth over the last couple of weeks. Maybe you've noticed we've had a few encores, a few replays. Hope you've enjoyed them. There's always great stuff in the vault to go back to. We've had a few new shows that I think have been good as well. Hope you've enjoyed those. But yeah, a little bit on why we've had some encores over the past couple of weeks. So we've had that big hurricane sweep through, actually 2 hurricanes that affected Florida, where I am a little bit, somewhat. Everything's fine where we are and everything. And yeah, continued prayers for those that have been really displaced and harmed by those hurricanes. But anyway, we made a little bit of a pilgrimage out of it when we decided to evacuate. This last one went up to Hanceville, Alabama, to the shrine there that Mother Angelica built. Beautiful. And then I ended up visiting some family in Nashville, then up into Notre Dame, visiting some family there in South Bend, but also going to this pro-life conference, this summit that Americans United for Life put on equal protection, specifically related to the personhood for the preborn under the 14th Amendment. A lot of interesting debate and some interesting discussions, interesting people to meet there. And so got to reconnect with Larry once more. Always a pleasure. And thought, hey, I think it would be a wonderful opportunity to bring Larry on. So here he is with us today. Again, if you want to ask him any questions, this is a man with a wealth of experience, a very awesome opportunity to ask a question to someone who's been around and probably seen it all. You can give a call right now with any question you might have, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. Larry, in the midst of all of the pro-life activity, I guess you're bringing your Catholic faith back into this. We know that it all flows from that. You mentioned the knee mail that you begin each day with, and so it all flows from there. What about your vocation? Was there a time as through all that you were going through in your early years, ever considering maybe is the Lord calling me to the priesthood, to be a religious brother? Did you always think maybe I'm called to marriage? Anything you can share with any young people, young guys who might be listening and might be kind of in that circumstance? Anything from your own experience?
Yeah, I think especially in Massachusetts, I spent 3 years with Ambassador Ray Flynn from the Vatican, a former mayor of Boston, and Cardinal O'Malley, who at the time was a bishop and then made a cardinal. But we were doing the fight against gay marriage and doing all the work on that. And through that, I got to meet the Opus Dei folks, who have a wonderful retreat center, which really became my salvation. I spent a lot of time at Arnold Hall in prayer and discernment. And I can remember distinctly that they would take me and show me different aspects of your vocation, and we would think about these things. And the more they talked about philosophy and theology and that, the more I realized that that was not something that was in the cards for me. I made the top half of my law class possible. I'm not high on the intellectual list, and I'm more of a practical doer. I also had been offered to work for the Catholic Conference up there. The fellow that was doing it was retiring. And I realized that I couldn't do that either. I was too much of an activist and not enough of a pacifist, I guess, to work for the Catholic bishops and work about the tact of and the politicians. I wanted to be actively known as an anti-abortion activist and not as a pro-lifer or a Catholic solely, and then get involved in the compromises that seem to become necessary in order to get the government funding for your hospitals and schools and healthcare and Catholic charities and all those types of things. Mm-hmm. So the priesthood was not meant to be, and for various reasons, marriage hasn't worked out with anybody per se, although I've been pretty steady with one family. I have a 97-year-old, what I call father-in-law, that I take care of, while my best friend travels all the time. And so we've known each other for some 40 years, and she was at many family functions. And so we've gone through that, but neither of us has met someone else. And so we maintain a household, if you will, as roommates, housemates, and have shared and been blessed because we've been able to combine households and be able to live very nicely.
Well, yeah, Larry Cirignano with us. Go ahead, Larry.
I should tell you that I was, when I first met her 40 years ago, she and her brother were living together and had a room to share. And I was the perfect roommate because I was traveling with Ronald Reagan, and I was gone 26 weeks of the first year that I was there as a roommate. Over the course of time, we've taken care of each other's families and done, hospice with in-laws and outlaws and done all the activities that you do. And I've gone away to live in 14 different states, and we seem to keep coming back to each other. So that's the aspect of that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Larry is sharing some personal testimony with us today, and also vast experience throughout the pro-life movement that is part of that testimony. So again, awesome opportunity to call in any question that you might have. The phone line is open, 1-877-511-5483, 1-877-511-5483. And so, I guess I'd like to ask you, just based on all of your experience, it seems to me there's something of a crisis of leadership in our time, when it comes to both church and state. I would include the pro-life, movement in that. And, you mentioned some names, from the 1980s that you were around that I would consider, to be people that would be great leaders. And I just don't see those same sorts of figures before us today. What's your perspective on it? What was it like to be around some of those leaders from back in the day, and then where we are today? Any encouragement, any advice you'd have for us in terms of your perspective on leadership?
Yeah, I was blessed to be with a lot of people who had vision. Let's not forget when this first happened, and there was a dozen people sitting around a coffee table thinking, let's have a March for Life. And at that time, they stood on the back end of a pickup truck without even a bullhorn for the first March for Life. But they understood the need to get together and to work and to go back and forth over legislation. There were major battles over whether or not to do rescues. And then the FACE Act came. There's always been arguments about whether or not we should talk about contraception and all the other family incidences and the need for fatherhood, or is that a distraction from the main issue? And as we're seeing today now, going after surgical is not enough, that we really have to work about chemical abortions, where the majority of abortions are now. We could close all the abortion mills in the country, and women are still getting pills through the mail, maybe even from overseas. So where the solutions are there, I think we have to spend a lot more time educating. And unfortunately, most of the education only goes to the political, which means that they focus in on registered voters and they focus in on people who are most likely to be persuaded. And so an awful lot of people in our country don't even hear the words abortion, don't think about the words abortion, except from what they get from Planned Parenthood. Certainly in the urban areas where they don't have Republicans running and nobody's bothering to spend out voter guides and scorecards and spend their time and effort. Many urban areas, we don't even have a Republican running. And unfortunately, the pro-life Democrat has gone by the way of the dodo bird. They don't exist in politics. They certainly exist in the blue-collar world, union members and that are pro-life and pro-family, that aren't for women having to compete with boys in sports and don't understand transgender and aren't going to go for the wokeness. But the vocal pro-lifers, by definition these days, have to be Republican. And we haven't even scratched the surface on IVF. We've been fighting it for 20 years, actually 44 years now, since the first embryo was brought to life in England. She's 44 years old now. But understanding the science, and I only got a C in biology, and I think most people, again, we can't make abortion unthinkable until people think about it, and most people aren't thinking about it.
Right. Yeah. What, in your view, all that being said, in your view, then, what do you think is, what do we need right now in the pro-life movement? Anything that you'd like to share with us along those lines?
Yeah. Well, the environmentalists raise lots of money for saving pandas and tigers and elephants, but they realize that they really have to worry about clean water and clean air and amoebas and algae and the science of it, the nitty-gritty. And I think we the same have to focus in on embryos. And if we say that life begins at conception, we have to define that, and we have to let people know what that means. We're finding an awful lot of pro-lifers who were pro-life until the Dobbs decision, and now when they actually rubber meets the road, well, they think maybe rape and incest, and they think, well, maybe IVF is okay, and they think yada, yada, yada. And turns out that many of them really were only conveniently pro-life, as we're seeing with all these Republicans that are against Donald Trump and not really caring about the life issue and where Harris is on it. That's not an issue for them. And many times it never was. They were always fiscal conservatives and anti-tax people maybe, or defense war mongers, whatever you want to call them. And so they were anti-Democrat, but they weren't anti-life, and now they are. And many of them don't even realize it. And unfortunately, an awful lot of our leaders have got test tube babies and IVF children. And it's getting to the point now with 100,000 IVF children being born and over 1.5 million embryos in freezers. There's an awful lot of people that are vested in this industry. And that's the big dog in town, because along with Big Pharma, they've got the money and they've got the resources to be in the state houses and in the Congress lobbying with a lot of resources that we will probably never see in the pro-life community. Mm-hmm. So working on the basics of pro-life from conception is important.
Yes, yeah. We might not have all the money that the evil progresses with, but we do have the truth. And so, talking about that scientific truth of things, it's not a religious belief; it's a scientific fact. Life begins at conception, fertilization. I just happen to have some embryology textbooks here. One reads, is from 1996. It reads, development of the embryo begins at stage 1 when a sperm fertilizes an oocyte and together they form a zygote, end of quote. Another embryology textbook, human development begins after the union of male and female gametes or germ cells during a process known as fertilization, conception. That's 1988, Essentials of Human Embryology. Here we've got one from Medical Embryology, 1975. The development of a human being begins with fertilization, a process by which two highly specialized cells. It goes on. You get the point. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with our guest today, Larry Cirignano. And one great place if you want to meet Larry, he's pretty much always at the Men's March. And so we've got the next Men's March coming up in Boston, Massachusetts, November 16th. You can go to themensmarch.com for all the information there, including the night before. And we've got the holy hour, the opportunity for confessions, the Holy Mass, all that happening to spiritually prepare ourselves the night before. And so everybody's welcome to come join us there. Men, women, everybody come join us for that night of prayer. And then we've got the event on Saturday, November 16th. Again, all the information there at themensmarch.com. Larry, certainly want to give you an opportunity on this final segment to go wherever you want to go. But quick question that comes to mind, and you would be a great one to ask for this because you knew Ronald Reagan, you had some contact with him. And so, that being the case, we're talking about the scientific fact that life begins at conception, fertilization, and we all have to contend with that truth. If that's the reality, if that's what it is, we all began at fertilization, which is the scientific fact, then to not treat one another with love from that very first moment of our existence, that's a problem. And to violate the relationship that we ought to have with every human life from the very beginning, to violate that so gravely as to intentionally directly kill, to murder the child that is growing and living and only needs nutrition and time to develop just like you and I. It's so terrible. And yet, yes, most people don't even think about it in these terms, but this is the reality. You can't just be freezing embryos and acting like they're things, not people. It's terribly wrong. You can't just call IVF a fertility treatment. It's treating people that it is conceiving as if they are property, as if they are things. It's not right. None of it is right. And you can't look at so-called hard cases and say, because this child was conceived in a less than ideal circumstance, even an evil circumstance like rape, you can't say that somehow reduces the value of this child and we now have the right to kill this child. It's still an individual person to be loved regardless of the circumstances. And that can be difficult to love in those circumstances. But that's why we have community that comes around people and loves on them to help them to be able to love. And so this is the way we need to look at these things. But Donald Trump brings this up now as we head into the election. I don't want to get too much off into that direction, but I know Donald Trump does bring up it when he talks about his position now. He says, well, I'm just like Reagan. I have the exceptions for rape and incest, and just like Reagan. And he just wants to go back to that. Can you tell us a little bit about Ronald Reagan, perhaps his position on exceptions, so-called exceptions as he had? What was your sense on, on the way that Ronald Reagan viewed it?
Well, as California governor, he extended abortion and he regretted it. I think it rolled off everybody's tongue on rape and incest until people started to think about it. And we didn't find the Rebecca Kieslings and Pam Stenzels and them finding each other and enhancing their discussion talking points. And we also would say health of the mother and didn't understand that the lawyers and the knaves and the courts would extend that to be mental health and physical health and financial health and emotional health. We were thinking in terms of life of the mother health issues. And so the problem of sausage making, if you will, of the law and trying to understand what it all is. Ronald Reagan said many times that he regretted his California decision, and that would be one thing that he would have changed. And yet we still hadn't, we were just then getting sonograms and we were just starting to think about embryology. It wasn't until George Bush that we had the debate over whether or not to do embryo research. And he tried to play Solomon and say, well, we'll let you do the existing stem lines, but not create any more because we know that's wrong. And we're still fighting over embryo research at places like St. Jude's Hospital and great institutions that are striving to try and find the cure for cancer and all these other terrible diseases, but using embryos, which means that they're creating babies for parts. But you have to, find people that want to talk about this and think about it. Now, Rebecca Kiesling has found over 1,000 people who were conceived in rape, and they are out and available to talk. And now it's less and less likely that when legislation comes up that an exception for rape and incest would be included. So all that is coming to a head. I spent a lot of time with Tom DeLay and Janet Porter running around the Hill and getting co-sponsors for the heartbeat bill and explaining to people. And it's amazing how many people had never really thought about it and don't know the science that a baby's heartbeat can be found at 6 weeks. And so I think an awful lot of hard to believe in 2024 that people don't know these things, but they're not taught. And certainly in government-run schools, everything is pro-abortion, not pro-choice. They don't want to think in terms of that. Big pharma certainly doesn't want anybody thinking about the chemicals going into the water and all the problems that they're not studying that we know exist for women's physical well-being with all the hormone treatments and that. And now with chemical abortions, the flushing of babies down toilets and the recycled reclaimed water in Florida and California being spread on your grapefruits and oranges with dead babies in it. People aren't talking about that yet, but it's starting to happen. And we'll have to get people to focus more and more on that as we see these surgical abortions go away for the most part.
Yeah. Larry, we have still a few more minutes to go, thanks be to God, and the floor is open. Anything else that you want to share with us, go for it.
Jim, I think it's a lot of one-on-one conversations. If people would take the responsibility for just their zip code and try to get people in your neighborhood to go back to church. The church family can take care of an awful lot, but they need people in the pews and putting money in the basket to keep the Catholic schools open, to help with the food banks, to help with the daycare, to help with working with any mom that has a troubled pregnancy, doing things like meal trains and babysitting and helping to get moms to the grocery store or get them some diapers or formula or get them to a pharmacy or, all those little projects. The network in your community usually is based around a church. That's usually the most reliable place to find people who are helpers. And being responsible to get more people to come back to church after COVID, and your other program with Bishop Strickland about getting all of our family members to come back to church. Very helpful. And I think it's going to come down to that. It's the Hillary Clinton, it takes a village. Rick Santorum saying, it takes a family. So it's a different way of looking at it. But either way, we all have to get together to work together. I think everybody should spend some time on the sidewalk and see that happen, see what's going on outside an abortion mill. That most of it is peaceful, prayerful. In many cases, people never actually see anybody except the people driving by, so you don't actually get to talk to the women. But we're there to help and offer help, and we do. At least once a month, we have somebody who turns around.
Yeah, what a blessing to have Larry with us today, Larry Cirignano. And thank you for being with us, Larry, sharing some of your story, sharing some of your experience and your wisdom, what you've learned and can impart to us. A great blessing for us today. Thank you so much. And take to heart what Larry is sharing with us there. I know that I am, been in different places and the climate is different. Not just a difference in temperature when it comes to New York and Florida, but a difference in the way that the pro-life movement works. It's going to be different depending on where you live. So you kind of got to get a lay of the land, and starting off with your local church community is a great idea. And the sidewalk, get to the sidewalk. You'll learn so much there and be a blessing to others. God bless you.